Welcome to Running Down the Clock, where we break down all of this week's big news, events, and controversies from the National Football League. Over the next 45 minutes, we will give you basic fan perspective and opinion on the most important stories and moments happening now. So, let's start the clock.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Running Down the Clock. I am Tyler Walzak. I'm here with Puya Ricey. As always, I apologize for my voice. I do not have a cold. I just got hit in the throat at hockey, and this is my voice. I'm hoping probably not forever, but for the time being, this is what we're working with. Hi, Puya.
I didn't notice. I didn't notice any difference in your voice. What happened in hockey?
I was skating, trying to reach for a puck. The opposite player also was trying to reach for the puck. We both turned to get out of the way. I took the shoulder to the throat. He got away unscathed.
Clean shot, accident, collateral damage, or cheap shot?
Collateral damage.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah, no, I had no ill will to the guy. Definitely couldn't. This was Thursday, so I couldn't talk like Thursday or Friday. And now we're recording on Wednesday. Still haven't got it back to full strength.
Did he offer you a beer? Did he offer you a beer after the game?
No, but he picked up my stick. My stick went flying, and he went and picked it up for me. So that's kind of the same thing. No?
Yeah, it's not a bad move, but it's
No.
nice to offer the guy you injure beer after the game. I'm guessing they had beers in their dressing room. I know your hockey team. I'm on that hockey team. And the other teams, we don't have beers, but the other teams always have beers.
Yeah, they do. Our team doesn't drink that much beer in the hockey room. In the
It's
dressing
all
room.
Asian guys, not to get racist, but I am Asian, so I can get racist. So
I mean,
towards
the
Asian.
last 5 or 6 games before the 5 or 6 games before the holiday break, there's a lot of like foreign beer that somebody brought back over from Thailand or something.
Vietnam. It was
Vietnam.
Vietnamese beer.
Yeah, that stuff was cool.
Yeah.
That stuff was cool. There's also something else that the viewers won't see, but I have not shaved this close my face in probably like 6 years. And that is because I decided that on Sunday morning, I should try to trim up my beard. And because I was nervous of this Lions game, because of my stress and anxiety, I was kind of rushing. I wasn't really paying attention, just going through the motions. I also have a new beard trimmer, and it just took all of it off. And now I'm stuck in this. Do I have to do this every Sunday now? 'Cause I don't like
Would
it.
you say that your life is better off with the Detroit Lions being a losing non-playoff team?
No, absolutely not. I've had the greatest week that I could possibly have. Michigan Wolverines won a national championship. Detroit Lions won their first playoff game in 30 years. And they did it in like that was probably the only good game of the weekend in terms of competitiveness. No? Did you get to see much of these, or did you just do highlights again?
Yeah, I that's what I call. I called that the Lions game would be the most competitive, the best storyline, the most competitive. All the other games were blowouts by what, at least 14?
Yeah. And like if it was within 14, it's just because garbage time touchdowns at the end. Like Dallas was out of it until they came back with 2 touchdowns, I think, in the fourth quarter, but those were meaningless touchdowns.
Let's get into it. Let's get into it. What, you want to start with the Lions? Do you want to start with the Lions? Because
I
I
do
got
want to
some
start with
notes
the
here for
Lions
the
because there's a
Lions.
lot of obviously I'm a Lions fan, and this was the greatest thing in the world. I was so happy, man. Oh my God. I thought like thank you, Detroit, for showing up and being loud because you made them waste 2 timeouts in the third quarter that they would have needed to stay in this game at the end with time running out that they didn't have. And that's because the fans were so loud that they forced Stafford to have to use 2 timeouts. And like honestly, then Dan Campbell going instead of just running it with like a minute and 57 seconds left, throws it to Amon-Ra St. Brown for the first down, seals the game. Man, what a day that was. Like honestly, that was joy. That was joy. The first time in football life, that was joy. Pure joy about the playoffs. And now every game from here on in, like obviously I want to win, but it's not going to be as stressful as always being the punchline of every joke my entire life. Now we've kind of got that, let's say, monkey off their back. But a lot of other sideline stories came out of this Detroit Lions game. Sam Laporta was back, thank God. We thought he was going to be out. Remember, he got hurt in the last week of the season. Um, but there's Jared Goff. So Matthew Stafford, yes, was probably the best quarterback we've had in 30 years, maybe more. Comes back to town, booed, heavily booed, which going into this game, I didn't know what I would do. I was kind of along the lines of during warmups, maybe just give him like a polite, like half, not a standing ovation, but like a heartfelt, like welcome back. Hey, good, yeah,
Can I
sportsmanship.
can I give you my take on it?
Yeah.
It's not a respect thing. It's a playoff thing. We need the win, and anything we can do to get in this player's head at this time. If it's a regular season game, give him his flowers, applaud him, put a big video tribute on the Jumbotron, like whatever you want. But for this playoff game, you need to get in his head and you need to win. There's no friends. There's no friends right now, right? Friendships
Yeah.
are all off. And you do anything you can to get in his head without, crossing any lines. I know his wife was complaining that they booed her kids. Now, I don't think they booed the kids. I think they just booed him when he was with the kids.
Well, that's the funny thing about it. So I've got a couple takes on this. And yes, once the fans started booing Stafford, I was like, okay, we're going in the boo section. I was all for it. Boo the shit out of him. This is a playoff game. Like, and it throughout the week, it became one of those things where everyone was like, are they going to applaud Stafford? Are they not going to applaud Stafford? But then Calvin Johnson, who is a Hall of Famer for the Detroit Lions, who's a friend of Matthew Stafford, said, hey, you're coming home. Don't expect us to be nice to you. So it was like, okay, fair game. Everybody boo the shit out of him, which they did. And it was the right move and it worked. And it's not, again, it's not a lack of respect that we have for Matthew Stafford. It's everything you just said. We need to get in your head. This is a playoff game. We haven't had a playoff game in Detroit in this stadium ever. So like means so much to us, more than it means to him. Um, and then as far as Kelly Stafford goes, nobody in Detroit likes Kelly Stafford. People maybe respect her for what she's gone through in her story, but I don't like Kelly Stafford because I think she says things that she shouldn't say sometimes, in terms of talking about his teammates, in terms of talking about what she thinks Lions fans are thinking. And 1000% people were not booing the kids, they were booing her. She was with the kids the entire time. So yes, we are going to boo her, but also hate to say this, but kids are also on the field and they're also wearing Rams jerseys. So boo the shit out of them. I'm all for them.
Did you see Stafford's post-game conference? I know he just came off a loss, but I think the question was worded something along the lines of what does this mean for the city? And Stafford responded with, I'm very happy for the players. Kind of a deliberate, nothing to show kind of, this means a lot for the city of Detroit. No showing love there, just respecting the players. I know this means a lot. I'm happy for the players.
I mean, yeah, like what he just got booed the same day that you asked him that question. He just got booed in a hostile environment, so you can't expect him to be like understanding about it that day. But I'm assuming if you ask him that question in the off season, he'll probably have a different answer. It's one of those things where like right away he's also a professional athlete that wants to win every single game. So because he lost, he's not all of a sudden gonna like be super super respectful back. Do you know what I mean?
No, but it is his home for how many years?
It's still his home, I believe. I still believe he doesn't live there, but he does a lot of things in Detroit still, so he spends a
Right.
lot of time in Detroit. But I mean, come on, what do you expect?
No, I don't. I
We
get it.
have to.
I'd be
Yeah.
throwing up the flipping the bird to everybody, screaming at everybody. I'd be way more spiteful. So
Yeah, but
it's not
also
that
I
I
would expect
expect.
it back too. Like I would,
Yeah.
so like if you want to boo the kids, boo the kids, but the kids should be able to like give you the middle finger back. Kelly Stafford can give us the middle finger back. She can say she's saying all the shit she wants. So yes, we are allowed to also boo them. They're in our
I'm
house in a playoff
I
environment.
I grew up with the Vancouver Canucks who never made it hostile for the opposing team ever. I never remember a hostile environment for an opposing team. And I'm very much on board of when you are an away game, you are at an away game. It is hostile without, life and nobody throwing stuff at players, nobody, like really crossing any lines, but it's a hostile environment that you're in an away game.
Yeah.
I'm all for that. That's how it should be.
A
And
thousand
that's what
percent.
gives you the home field
That's
advantage.
why you have home field advantage. And also, we need to respect Jared Goff. Everybody in the Detroit Lions world has to respect Jared Goff. That means booing the other quarterback in a
Yeah.
playoff game.
Would you say, and if the answer is no, it's no, that Jared Goff erased something, not all, obviously not all, but something of Matthew Stafford's legacy as a QB in Detroit?
I think in the short-term memory, as long as Jared Goff is here, yes. Because Jared Goff won a playoff game. Matthew Stafford's never won a playoff game for us. So we can, and that was the argument all week leading up to this game was, well, Matthew Stafford's like people who don't understand, I want to say like a losing mentality for your entire life to have a game like this. People on the outside, like comments on Instagram and stuff, are just like, how can you boo Stafford? He's like your greatest quarterback of all time. Is like, because we have to. Like
Yeah.
it's he also never won a playoff game for us. Jared Goff
No,
has done that.
but
So Jared Goff
it
has a different legacy within our fan base. He was an outcast. He was basically meant for this team. Nobody wanted him. We took him. We didn't want him when we first got him. And now he is probably going to get another contract, which I'm very happy about. He's going to hopefully win us another playoff game, if not this year, another year. So yes, he absolutely has taken away a little bit of that legacy. And then again, every time heals everything. So Stafford's legacy is always going to be that. But as long as Jared Goff's here, it's going to be a different conversation for a little bit.
But as we all know, you have to compare the two. A lot of times, QBs get an unfair comparison against each other. This QB beat that QB, even though they're never on the field at the same time together. But in this situation, they were straight up traded for each other. It's not that Jared Goff was just the next QB they picked up, filling in his shoes, picking up where he left off. They were swapped.
Yeah.
So you have to compare what you got in return in that trade, right? That's a direct trade.
Yes.
That's the only reason why I feel it takes a little bit, as of today, Matthew Stafford still is the best quarterback that I can ever think of that played for the Lions.
Yes.
But that was the old Lions. And this is, as they keep saying, this is the new Lions.
The brand new Lions.
Brand new Lions.
And again, like if it's yes, they were traded heads up, like for each other. It worked out for both teams. Los Angeles got their Super Bowl with Stafford. We Lions fans were all happy for that. That's the other thing people forget is we were so happy for the Los Angeles Rams when they won because of Matthew Stafford. There were shirts being sold at the Detroit airport that were like the Los Angeles Lions or something like that, or the LA or the Detroit Rams.
He
or something
got
like that.
his
Like,
praise from the city. People couldn't have been happier for him. There was no spite from the city of Detroit for him when he won, thinking, oh, we lost out on a great QB. No, people were happy for him. They understood it was time for everybody to part ways.
Yeah.
Out of respect, right? Like
exactly.
It was like jail. He put in his time.
Yeah.
Give him his release to go somewhere and win. And they traded him to a good team, a Super Bowl contender team that won, not to a garbage team. Like imagine if you went to I forget who was the last place team in the league that year, but like the Carolina Panthers of this year, where you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You've been traded to somewhere just to die.
So in return, we got Jared Goff, who's working out very well this year and last year. He's playing very good football, elite football. But we also got like 3 first-round draft picks that we turned into like Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta, and either Jack Campbell, Brian Branch. Like we have built a team around basically that trade, pushing us forward through a forever rebuild. So I mean, it worked out for both teams, and it's just one of those things where somebody had to win, and it was the Lions. And 24-23, super close game. It probably won't be the last time these two teams play in the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a matchup again next year.
I can see Stafford walking away any day though.
Well, that's the thing about Los Angeles. Everybody there always seems to want to retire, but I think if Coach comes back, Sean McVay, if he comes back to Los Angeles, I think Stafford comes back with him. I think those two are married at the hip. Also, because of the youth that the Rams found this year. Like we thought Rams were going to be bad this year, but Kyron Williams, the running back, is probably going to be a top 5 running back next year. Puka Nacua was sensational, broke all rookie records for wide receivers. So if you're Matthew Stafford or Sean McVay and you ever thought about retiring, you have to be re-energized by the fact that these kids are coming in and making your team a contender once again.
Absolutely. They look good. I think it was a little too late for them. They picked it up too late in the season.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, hey, like there was a great game. Both teams were in it.
It
Both
was.
teams were slinging the ball. It was a great game. There's nothing like
What was your heart rate throughout the game?
I
Were
was
there moments
super
where
sweaty.
it
No,
was
I
over?
was
It was
sweaty.
over.
Super
Your
sweaty.
life was over at
No,
times.
no,
Life flashed before your eyes.
that's the difference between this season and every other season a Lions fan is usually yes, you're like, fuck, it's over. This is it. That's when it's gonna happen. But it wasn't really that moment. Like we could have very easily, if they had not wasted their 2 timeouts because of the fan noise, feel like Stafford might have got the ball back, and then Matthew Stafford with 2-minute drives left in the fourth quarter is almost like guaranteed win. He's an
And
amazing comeback quarterback. So, but that didn't happen. We got the first down, so it was
the
never
blown
that moment.
call, the blown call by the refs.
The blown call by the refs. Which one are you talking about? This game?
There was one, I think, was it Hutchinson or no? Somebody was called for offside when they're in the neutral zone. No, am I mixing this up?
No.
And it was actually the Rams player, and it
Oh
wasn't the
yeah,
Detroit player.
yes. That
The
was
refs just got it wrong.
frustrating because it
But at that
1000% was
point,
the
did you
Rams
not
player.
think, okay, the fix is in.
Well,
We're
that was the
losing.
only
They're
thing.
gonna they're gonna
Yes.
do anything to make us lose. It's over.
Yeah.
I hate football. I'm done.
Well, that
Because
was
Tyler Walzak
you can
signed
say
off.
it that one time. The fix was in because we've been screwed by referees forever. So at that moment, it was like, are you kidding me? But it was solved. I think they got the first down like the next play. So it was one of those things like, okay, well, we did it ourselves. And if we're going to have to do this,
Yeah.
we're going to have to do it ourselves because the refs are always going to be against us in Detroit. But no, thankfully, that didn't have to be an issue.
But okay,
Thankfully.
going back a week, I said something that there's rarely any justice in football. There's rarely that ball don't lie moment. But
We got
did
that.
did it not all work out in the end with Dallas losing? Detroit is
For
right where
this
they
week.
wanted to be.
For this week, yes. We should technically still have a home game. If we win, if we beat the Bucks this week, it should technically be San Francisco coming into Detroit. Now, if the Packers beat San Francisco, it'll be in Detroit again. Then that'll be the ultimate ball don't lie moment.
But the only thing is the Detroit Lions would have just taken the second spot over Dallas. They wouldn't have taken the first spot over.
No, they would have taken the first spot from San Francisco.
Really?
Yeah, they would have had the best record in the NFC. If that Dallas game didn't get taken away from them, they would have been 13-4 or something like that. 1 win ahead of San Francisco. They would have been the first team with a bye week in the playoffs. That's why I was so angry.
We'll have to double check on that one because I think
You don't need to double check.
San Francisco,
It's 1000%
San Francisco won out. San Francisco won out as well. Anyway,
They
didn't
lost their last game against the 49ers.
San Francisco is the 49ers.
Sorry, they lost their last game against the Los Angeles Rams.
Did they?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I'm forgetting that one just because it was a meaningless game.
Yeah, because the 49ers are 12-5, the Lions are 12-5, so the Lions would have been 13-4 and taken that first place seed. Now, that being said, if the Lions beat Dallas and the game wasn't stolen from them,
the 49ers
San
would have played a
Francisco
little
probably
harder.
would have. Yeah, they probably wouldn't have rested their players. So you're right. It could have been that. And if you think of it that way, that actually gives me a little more solace on not losing that 1 seed.
Yeah. Anyway, the whole point I was going to make about this is I think in the end it worked out better for Detroit. Not that they wouldn't have beat Green Bay, but I think that would have been a worse game for them to have started off with.
I think,
and then this way they still get home field advantage for the first 2 games. They still got the Bucks coming into Detroit for this week.
Yes. Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be coming in Detroit. Another home game for Detroit. It's going to be loud again. Let's talk about the other games. Let's talk about Cowboys.
Well, the only reason I say that is because there was a little more doubt playing Green Bay because of what happened the last time they played on Thanksgiving.
Yes, sure.
And I'm not saying they would have lost, but with the Rams, it was what I was saying last week. All they had to do was remember we can beat these guys. There's no reason whatsoever for there to be any doubt in our minds that we lose. With Green Bay, there was just that slight little bit more doubt that could manifest into something bigger
Sure, but
because
they
they
did
did
beat Green
lose.
Bay as well this year. They split with Green
They
Bay.
did, yeah. But it's just the last time they played, it was pretty sloppy and poor. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. And but here's the scary part about Green Bay is, and we talked about this, I think, at the beginning of the year in the preview section, is that every Lions fan's nightmare is Jordan Love being a Hall of Fame quarterback. And fuck, he looks like he's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah, but this is one of those things where the whole NFL world thinks it's like so strange, but yet we talk about it and everybody knows it. Even the analysts talk about it. When you sit a guy for multiple seasons to learn the game at a very high level behind a very elite quarterback, you're setting him up for success.
Yes.
When you bring a guy in and expect so much out of him early, you're not setting him up for as much success. Like the CJ Stroud story is amazing because that difficult road ahead of him.
Yeah.
He very well could have had a similar situation to Bryce Young,
Yes.
and it wouldn't be shocking to anybody. It's
So
more
why?
often than not that they have a tough road ahead of them, rather than Jordan Love seems like he really figured it out, and he looks more comfortable out there because he's been kind of educated, groomed as a pro elite QB for quite a few years now. Even though
That
this is kind of his
1,000%.
breakout season, but he's not a rookie.
1,000%. Like he
It's no surprise.
technically you can think of him as a rookie because everything he's done this year is the first time he's doing it, starting a full season, going to playoffs. But you're right, he's not a rookie, and I don't know why more teams don't do this. Like what it's a proven thing. Like it happened. Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith for a year, then they got rid of Alex Smith. And Aaron Rodgers sat behind Brett Favre. Jordan Love sat behind Aaron Rodgers. Why are more teams not doing this? Is it because I don't actually know what it is. I'm hoping not to
I
bring it back to the
think
Lions,
they
but
don't. The thing is they don't have the luxury of having developed that first quarterback for your second quarterback to sit behind. You rush your first Cleveland. Take Cleveland Browns for example. Your first guy never developed. So what are you going to do? Rest some rookie behind a quarterback you never developed in the first place?
yeah. See, if
You
the
need to
Lions were
take
smart,
that.
if the
Go
Lions
ahead.
are smart, they drafted a guy in the third round named Hendon Hooker from Tennessee, who's supposed to be a very good prospect. That could be him just behind Jared Goff, learning, 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 learning. And then we have a guy for the foreseeable future for the 10 years after Jared Goff retires. Um, and that's always what the Packers have done. They've been lucky to have a guy fall in the draft. So Aaron Rodgers fell from what was supposed to be first one to five in the draft. I think he fell to like 24 or something. And the Packers picked him up and said, we'll just have him sit behind Favre. Like, this is a QB of the future here. That's supposed to be a top five quarterback in the draft. Same thing happened with Jordan Love. Jordan Love was supposed to be a top quarterback in the draft, and he fell to Green Bay Packers. So anytime you see a, a guy who's supposed to be a top five quarterback, you feel like if you're a team that's winning and you have a quarterback for 5 more years or 3 more years, you pick up the guy that's falling. So that's why it was weird about Will Levis from Tennessee, the rookie in Tennessee this year. He was supposed to be a top five guy. He fell to the second round. Now, one of these teams that has a quarterback that's like on the cusp of maybe Matthew Stafford, like seeing the Los Angeles Rams, he might retire soon. His career might be over. He's old. So you'd think that one of these teams with a guy like that would pick up Will Levis and just be like, you're sitting behind Stafford for 2 years. You're going to learn, and then you're going to have all the knowledge in the world to be better in your first year than a rookie quarterback coming in and playing right away. And we saw that with Green Bay. Jordan Love went 16 for 20, 272 yards, 3 touchdowns, perfect passer rating, and beat the Dallas Cowboys, the big mighty Dallas Cowboys that, like, they're in trouble, right?
Before we get into Dallas, what's the USC guy that you hate? The QB projected
Caleb
number one pick,
Williams.
Caleb Williams. I also feel, and again, this is not every single player. You can't blanket statement them. A lot of these young guys, they don't want to sit. They want to come in and be the superstar now. I want to
Yeah.
play now. I'm not going anywhere to sit and learn. I'm that's not me. I'm a generational talent. I'm playing now. And I feel a lot of them probably have this mentality that if I don't play now, then my football future is done, right? I need to get in there now, show what I can do, get the big bucks, get that second contract. Whereas you're still getting paid, sit, learn,
Yeah.
extend your career.
1,000%. I don't know why. That's the weird thing about an athlete mentality altogether when you get drafted, especially in the first round, especially a guy like Caleb Williams, who we've seen as kind of cocky, asking for specific demands already in his contract before he's even been drafted. You have to have a little bit of humbleness when you come into the NFL because you are no longer the top dog in the league. You're not the best player. You're not the guy everyone's talking about. You're maybe bottom 25 quarterback, bottom 20 quarterback. There's guys that are better than you, probably on your team. Everybody in the NFL is 1 out of 1 from whatever city that they came from and whatever age group they're in. And then all of a sudden you get the NFL and you're on equal playing ground as everybody else, if not a step back because you're a rookie. So it'll be very interesting when Caleb Williams comes in to see like what. It's also funny because he says he doesn't want to go to a losing team, but the guys at the top of the draft are the losing team guys that probably don't have a quarterback. Whereas the further you fall in the draft, the more likely you are to sit behind a quarterback that's already established because those are playoff teams. So it's kind of like,
This is just me getting older in my juvenoia, but these young kids, they just want life handed to them. They don't want to work for it. They want
you
to
want to
go to the
earn it.
championship squad with a big $100 million contract and be handed the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Makes me sick.
So there's also going to be something humble about falling in the draft if you're supposed to be the number 1 pick, number 4 pick, all the way to the second round or the end of the first round. Like that has to be humbling enough to be able to be like, okay, I can be here to learn behind this great quarterback, and then I will take over. And because now there's a book, there's a
It's
blueprint with everybody in Green Bay. Like if you
there's just
draft
well,
Caleb
it's
Williams and like you have to sit behind this guy and he gets upset, you can be like, look at Aaron Rodgers, sat 3 years behind Brett Favre. Look at Jordan Love, sat 4 years behind Aaron Rodgers. Like these are Hall of Fame guys we're talking about.
there's a lot of people they want to get rich, and there's the Warren Buffett way, but people don't like it, even though it's proven way to get rich. Tom Brady, greatest quarterback that's ever played, he had something he said, very simple words. Doesn't matter what pick you are, it doesn't matter how you get into the NFL. All that matters is when you get a chance to take the field, be ready to be at your best. And that's all you need is just that one opportunity.
Yeah,
That's the mentality you should have.
1,000%.
Just
And
just always make yourself better. And I apply that to every job I've ever had. You ever had a job where people are waiting for a promotion? They think, oh, they'll make me the manager, they'll make me this, and they'll teach me how to do it. It's like, no, be ready for that job. So the second that opportunity presents itself, you can step into it. Don't
yeah,
wait for it to be given to you. Be ready for it at any given time. That's the same mentality that you should have as an athlete.
1,000%. A thousand
That's
percent.
what Tom Brady said. That's exactly what he said. And where does he fall in terms of not just quarterbacks, in terms of athletes, right? The least gifted athlete is somehow among the greatest athletes of all time.
If not the greatest athlete ever, besides Michael Jordan, maybe.
Yeah. Dallas.
Gretzky,
Yeah.
Gretzky too. Okay, yeah, Dallas. Like, so what do they do? Because Dak
Were you
Prescott
surprised? Just were you
is the
were you
new.
surprised? Were you
No,
surprised? I don't think
I
any
I bet
everyone
I.
expected them to do better, but nobody was surprised with
So
that.
I made a 6 game parlay, where I bet each game just money line. Um, and I was 5 for 6 going into the Philadelphia Bucks game, and it was because uh, I bet Green Bay. There was no doubt in my mind that Green Bay was going to at least put up a good fight because the Cowboys do this year in and year out. It's Dak Prescott is no better than Tony Romo, and Tony Romo was not a good playoff quarterback. Um, and I don't think Dak Prescott is either. He had a horrible game. He was bad. Their defense was bad. Their defensive scheme was bad. The play calls were bad. Everything that came out of Dallas was bad that game, and everything that Green Bay did was just kind of like what Green Bay does in playoffs. That's the difference between those
I
two storied
I
franchises.
I don't know enough about coaching schemes, but I do know this. The head coach needs to keep the team together. And that was a team that fell apart. That's the same thing you can say with the Eagles those teams, I'm not saying fire your head coach, but your head coach needs to take a look in the mirror and understand that your teams fell apart under you as if they gave up, right?
Yeah.
They weren't playing as a team anymore. They weren't playing to any strength. Like Dallas didn't surprise me just because they were kind of like Miami, frauds all season. They never, when tested, they never really performed. So it wasn't that big of a surprise. Philly, on the other hand, we'll get into that, but that was a historic loss for Dallas. That was the first time a number two, since they included the super wild card weekend, they expanded. That's the first time a number 7 team beat a number 2 seed team.
Yeah, yes. And like it's put Dallas in a particularly messy spot because there's a Hall of Fame coach out there that is very good friends with the owner of Dallas. And that's Bill Belichick and Jerry Jones. And Mike McCarthy's been in a hot seat for a couple years now. Like they could easily just fire him and bring in Belichick. It's still,
I said it before. I said it before the week. I got no faith in McCarthy.
he has won a Super Bowl
Yeah,
with Green Bay.
Yeah, Rodgers had to win one, right?
Well, yeah, Aaron Rodgers had to win one, or else it wouldn't be Aaron
Um,
Rodgers.
Here's the thing that some people are saying with Belichick and Jerry Jones. It's going to be that Belichick wants to do it his way, and Jerry Jones is going to try and step on his toes too much, and it might not be a good match.
Well, here's the
No?
thing: is like that would be like if you and I were to run a team. Like, yes, you're gonna have those conversations, but you're gonna have them over beers. You're gonna have them over dinner. You're not gonna be. There's so much respect between the two that I don't think the headbutting would be as problematic as if you went to like Carolina and you don't know this
But do you
owner.
not think that they're at a road for a change where sometimes the headbutting it's fine when things are going great. There's no headbutting, but when it becomes crunch times, tensions are flaring. The tempers are flaring. There's a lot of tension in the room. Jones
Yeah,
wants to do it one way.
sure,
Belichick
but
wants to go a
at
complete
that
other
point,
way.
it's too late. Like the all Jerry
Who
Jones can
who
really do
has
is
the
help
final
with,
say?
but all he can really do is help with personnel. All he can do is help with draft. All he can help with free agents and who he wants and who like he can have input there. Once the season started, none of that stuff can happen. So what is he? He doesn't know anything about coaching. Jerry Jones doesn't know anything about coaching, so you just leave that
No,
to Bill.
but has Bill Belichick not been like vitally involved in all that for the past X number of
Yes, but
years?
that stuff happens when there's no pressure.
Yeah. Now, my other side of it is they're both getting old.
Yeah, they're both very old, over 70.
Maybe it's time that they don't want to wear all the hats.
So then wouldn't it be good for them to team up and take half the hat each?
Yeah, I mean that's the other side of it where I'm saying like I don't know what they've discussed. I don't know their relationship. I don't know how much power each one wants to relinquish in making this team a contender.
And that was kind of the talk around Bill Belichick too, is like, does he want to be a GM as well as the coach, or does he just want to be the coach? The problem thing with just doing one of those is you are then at the whim at the GM's personnel responsibilities.
Yeah.
We've seen it work, like it's working in Detroit with Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. Like they seem to be on the same page about who they want as a team in there. But you've seen it not work in places like, say, Washington, but they have new ownership now. Carolina, obviously, we just talked about their owner wants different personnel than their GM. Their GM wants different personnel than their head coach. So if you have all the control, that is why Bill Belichick was able to do what he did and win seven Super Bowls, six
Six.
Super Bowls, is because he was in charge of who the players on the field were, because he was in charge of who the players in the dressing room were. So you kind of want that though, but it is a lot of work.
Yeah. So I'd be curious how that works out. We saw that Atlanta interviewed both Belichick and Harbaugh. They publicly announced it, which I thought was kind of comical, as
Yeah,
if like
I mean,
like
they have
like
to.
they're the loser at the high school, and they danced with the prom queen, and they're telling
Nice.
everybody they did it. Not that it's odd; it's not an unusual thing. It
No,
just
that's a
seemed
funny
funny to
analogy
me.
though.
It just seemed funny to me. That's all.
That's a very funny way to look at it. I like that. Yeah, well, they have to prove that they're moving on to a better coach. They have to prove that they're moving on to a better. Um, they have to give their fans something because
Well,
Everybody in that
from
division
what
is
I
good.
understand, Atlanta has one of the most liked owners in the league. Like the fans love the owner. The owner is
Yes.
always doing stuff for the fans, trying to keep concession prices down so the fans enjoy themselves. Like always doing things for the fan. Like he's a very liked owner by his
Yes.
fan base.
Yes. And it is because of those moves, probably especially the concession stand thing.
Yeah, cheap. I think they had the cheapest beer
Yeah, it's like
prices
$5 or
in.
something like that. He's kept it
Yeah,
low the
yeah,
entire time. And it's a brand new stadium too.
yeah. So
Respectable. I like that.
I could see him landing when you are a likable coach, like sorry, owner like that. I can see him landing a top talent.
I think so
The
too. And
only thing is
I actually think,
who's wants to build a team from scratch that they don't have a ton. They got
well,
Bijan
they got Kyle
Robinson
Pitts, they
who
got Drake London, they got a good defense, and they got Bijan Robinson. They just need a quarterback.
but none of them have actually performed to the level we've expected yet. They're still your favorite word. They're still your favorite word of the potential is there, but we haven't seen it unleashed yet.
Sure, but do you think that's maybe because of their coach they just fired? Because he was in
Oh, I'm
charge of them
sure.
for also
I'm
years.
sure. You heard I went off on him last week, right? I didn't like him.
Yeah.
I
So
wasn't a fan.
you bring in a guy that knows how to
I
use
don't
them.
disagree with that, but again, it becomes a bigger undertaking to turn that ship to right that ship than some other teams, right? For a guy like Belichick or Harbaugh, like we were talking last week about the Chargers are more attractive. Dallas might be more attractive. Like some of these other teams look more attractive to fix rather than to kind of start up, right?
Agreed. Yeah. And I think that Atlanta, if we're talking about the teams that don't have head coaches, Atlanta is probably still better than Washington, still better than Tennessee, better than Carolina. Um,
The only thing I can see with Washington is that
they also
you
just
have
need a
new
quarterback.
you have new ownership who is trying to fix the wrongs of the past regime, right?
Yes, and good ownership,
So
ownership that
yeah,
the
like
ownership of the Washington Commanders is also kind of the ownership of the Dodgers. So you know that they want to win. You know that they're going to want to be.
yeah. So you can grow with that team, right? Like you can
Yes.
start the culture, you can start the foundation of everything within there, right? Because it's basically a new franchise in a sense, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I actually don't mind. Like I wouldn't mind coaching Washington. I also wouldn't mind coaching Atlanta because also all the skill position is there. Build up the lines a little bit more, get a little more offensive line, a little more defensive line. The trenches is where you win games,
Yeah.
and then run from it. Like those aren't unfavorable
Well,
spots to be.
you're a couple for both those teams, you're a couple years away anyway. Like you're
Yeah,
not looking to contend for the Super Bowl this next year.
exactly.
That's a bit ambitious.
Even Atlanta, like they were one game out of a playoff spot, so you technically could
But
make
come
the
on,
playoffs next
that
year.
was it was a weak division though.
Sure, but it's going to be a weak division again next year.
Yeah,
So it's you kind of is your best spot to make the playoffs right away. I would
fair
argue.
enough. Yeah.
So the other games were kind of crap. Going back to the playoffs, the Chiefs kind of found their wide receiver of the future maybe in this game. Rashid Rice stepped
Oh
up
yeah, but
big in a
we've known
cold
that for a
weather
few
game.
we've known that for a few weeks now that he's the only guy. We've thrown
I
his
know,
name
but
out there that
but he
he's
kind of solidified it now because you were not supposed to be able to catch the ball in that weather, and he caught 8 of them for 130 yards and a touchdown.
so
Like
I got the four guys here who had the best playoff debut. You see
so,
the notes here. I got the Jordan Love, C.J. Stroud, Rasheed Rice, and Puka Nacua. Puka
so
Nacua was unfortunately the only one on the losing team.
yes, and he was great, and he had one catch that was kind of
Monster
was
run.
yeah huge. Um, and again, I wasn't even mad at that. I was like, you know what, that's going to happen. We expected that to happen at one point in this game. So I actually do think that it's going to go to C.J. Stroud, though. I think I'd give it to C.J. Stroud. All 4 of these guys were amazing, but C.J. Stroud has the least reason for his team to be like. Does that make sense? Like Rasheed Rice plays on the Kansas City Chiefs, who won the Super Bowl last year. Puka Nacua plays for Matthew Stafford and the Rams, who won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Uh, Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers are always kind of been a team that's going to make the playoffs. Houston Texans had no reason to be in the playoffs. They're playing a great defense with the Browns
Could
and
you not
CJ
say the
Stroud.
same thing about the Houston Texans as you just said about the Atlanta Falcons? Their division, they have the best chance of making that playoffs because their division was fairly weak.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't supposed to be. Actually, it wasn't that weak. They had 3 teams that were supposed to make the playoffs that came right down to the last game of the
But they didn't.
the
They had
season.
one team make the playoffs. They had one team make
Yeah,
the playoffs
Jacksonville
in the
fell
end.
out of
So
favor, but
it just the reality of it is only one team did. So
sure. But then they went and beat a team from the best division in football that had 3 teams make the playoffs.
yeah, what happened to the Browns there? I'm
Well, with
not
Joe
shocked.
Flacco, like you can only take him so far, right?
Yeah. And that's why I was bigger on the Baker Mayfield thing is this is exactly what I said about Flacco. It's easier to look great in a small window than it is to look good the course of a season. And
Yes.
that's why I was pumping the Baker Mayfield for comeback player over Joe Flacco.
Yeah. I'm with you. And Baker played great. Baker didn't make big mistakes.
He played like a Heisman Trophy winning first overall pick quarterback.
Yeah, and he'll
I
probably get
think
a
this is the
contract
first
out of
time
this.
he's lived up. Yeah, I think this is the first time he's lived up to who he is.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And it's probably because he had lack of pressure on him. Like it no one expected him to be what he or do what he did for this team this year. And he was able to go out with that little bit of pressure, like not as much pressure as he had before. And come in as just a guy that's there to play football, and he made it work. Now, do you think Flacco gets signed by the Browns, or do you think he goes somewhere else?
I still think, based on how they treated him through the season, there's still not a lot of love for Flacco. I think, he was on the practice squad, they never signed him. They never put him on the 53-man roster, did they?
They did
They just
with
pick him
three
up
games.
for the week and then let him go.
They did that for 2 weeks, and then the last 3 weeks they picked him up and put him on the roster.
Sure. For some reason, I just think the same thing's going to continue. Even next year, there'll be more doubts about his age.
I
And
agree,
if
and I
had he played better in the playoffs, yes, but unfortunately he didn't, and I think he'll be in the same situation trying to get a backup spot. And with the way things are going, backup spots are not bad because it seems like backups are playing a lot these days. So
it does, and also the backup spot specifically in Cleveland is not a bad place to be because who knows if Deshaun Watson is going to be Deshaun Watson ever again. We don't think he
why
is, but
why would he get better now? He took 2 years off. He didn't get better.
I
Now
know
he took most of a season off. Why would he have gotten better during this most of the season off? Like nothing indicates this guy's on a trajectory to come back as a better player than his last game. I'm not even saying his all-time best, just better than the last game he played.
well,
What
so
makes you
that's
think he's going to come back better than the last game he played?
exactly. So Cleveland has to make a decision based off of we need to go get a quarterback that's young to back up at least the first 2 games to see if Deshaun has it, and then put him in.
Haven't
Like
they been making that decision since they came back into the league in '99 or whatever?
I know, so maybe you just go into the season saying Joe Flacco is your starter, Deshaun Watson's your backup quarterback.
Yeah.
You got nothing to lose that way, except for a whole bunch of games. Um,
Philadelphia. Should we talk about Philadelphia for a second?
I
I've
mean,
got a point of Philadelphia.
go for it.
That team, I've never seen a team fall apart like this. There was the Steelers a few years ago, I think in 2020, they went 11-0 and then they lost first round of the playoffs. Everyone always questioned them. This is the worst 11-0 team I've ever seen. They kept saying that throughout the season and they proved it. But my oh my, this Eagles team, nothing changed. They didn't have a drastic injury. This is what we were talking about earlier. The coach lost the team. The whole team lost confidence. Everybody, there was, I don't know how true it was, but there was reports coming out that receivers were upset with Jalen Hurts, saying his turnovers were an issue, that they were doing weird exercises to stop him from turning over the ball too much. And when nobody has faith in your quarterback, that's terrible.
It's weird
It's
because
one
when
thing for your quarterback not to have faith in the receivers, but when none of your receivers have faith in the quarterback, it means they won't put that extra little effort into the play to get open, right? Like it's almost they're frustrated before they even make their route.
when did they lose faith in him? Because it seems like this team took a downturn when the San Francisco 49ers beat them. When they
Yeah.
played the 49ers and they lost, that's when this team seemed to spiral downwards. They fired or they moved their defensive coordinator to a different defensive position. They brought in fat
Matt
Matt
Patricia?
Patricia, who couldn't get it done. Since he came along, the guys stopped tackling. That was the worst display of tackling I've ever seen in a playoff game ever. Um,
Oh.
and it's
It's the
just,
same guy too. He's had a few highlight reel bad plays. Bradbury
yeah,
or whatever
Bradbury, yeah.
in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He had one a couple weeks ago, a terrible one. You saw the Manning cast with Ray Lewis
Yeah. Ray
just
Lewis.
ripping these guys.
Exactly. Said like this, the team tackling is not there, and it's been a problem. But also, here's the thing with Matt Patricia. I don't know why they brought him in specifically because he got rid of Darius Slay. Darius Slay is the leader of that defense in terms of their secondary and their pass coverage. You just pissed him off by bringing in Matt Patricia. He does not like Matt Patricia. Matt Patricia does not like him. So you immediately have that all of his teammates that he's probably close with probably hear about Matt Patricia before he even got there that day. I'm not saying this is again just my opinion of what might have happened, but if I was big play Slay, I'd be like, I hate this guy. I hope he's changed. I don't like him. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. It's going to be awful. And then all of a sudden, all the guys he's talking to also don't like Matt Patricia. And that is when they made a massive change after the 49ers games, and it definitely did not pan out. It was like they panicked, and it just all of a sudden it just got worse here, and then worse here, and then worse here, and then it just all fell down.
And I think
Now,
that's when the head coach needs to start getting the team together, unite your team. And it seemed that Sirianni could not do that at all. His team was falling apart, and it was like, what's the analogy? Your boat's sinking and you're just more water's coming in. You're trying to toss it out with your hands, or something's just slipping through your fingertips, sand slipping through your fingers, whatever the hell you're talking about. But, I'm
yeah,
rambling, but it just seemed like nothing was getting better. Everything was getting worse and worse. Each game, they looked more and more defeated.
yeah.
And that playoff game just showed it. They had nothing. They had already lost as soon as they took the field. And I felt really bad for Kelsey watching him just, hold back his tears.
That's the problem that sucks with coming back for another year after you make the Super Bowl and lose, wanting to see if you can run it back and get to the Super Bowl again, as Jason Kelsey did. Now it didn't work out in like epic breakdown fashion. And now you've retired on, instead of a high of going to the Super Bowl and just not winning it, now you're on a team that completely blew up. And that's your last season.
Yeah. I blame the head coach, and I don't even think it's one of those situations where just swap the coach. If you swap the coach, you need someone to restore the players' faith in themselves and each other.
I don't think they're going to get rid of the head coach.
I don't think so either. And I'm not saying the move is to get rid of the head coach. The move right now is to get the team united and unified again. It seems like everybody's just out there for their own, doing their own thing now. Like they're not a team anymore.
I think
And
because
I don't know what happened
they
to Jalen
lost
Hurts.
both.
He's like such a likable guy.
I like Jalen Hurts.
I don't dislike
I want him
him,
to do. I
but
want him to do
I'm
well.
curious what's happened that, and maybe the reports are wrong, that the receivers aren't frustrated with him as much as they're saying in the
Well,
media.
they stopped
Maybe
running the ball. What happened to DeAndre Swift the last half of the season? Like they stopped throwing the passes in the flats to their running backs. They stopped running the ball. They just relied on the tush push. It was like that's all you talked about in Philly. It was like the tush push. They'll get a yard. They'll get a yard. They'll get a yard. Well, guess what? You need 10 to get a first down. So you got 3 plays. You get 1 yard each play. It's not going to do it for you. It's just
no. And then in the end, we saw in the playoffs there, the Bucks even stopped it. They couldn't even
stopped it
do
twice.
the one thing. They couldn't even do the one thing that was their bread and butter.
Yeah. It's they lost both offensive and defensive coordinators in the offseason last year. Offensive coordinator is in Shane Steichen is the head coach in Indy, and the defensive coordinator is the head coach. I forget where he went, but they lost both of them. So you have to replace those guys. This offseason is going to be huge. They have to find 2 guys, a defensive coordinator, because Patricia's not the answer, and an offensive coordinator that's going to get those parts of the team back together, and then the head coach can come in and be like, all right, everybody back on the same page. Because yes, he's got to mend some relationships this offseason. Do you want to get into the games coming up?
Let's do it.
We have 4 games this weekend.
One last thing. Just about the past. You heard Shannon Sharp's comments about Mike Tomlin. I really liked what he said. I really liked what he said, because Mike Tomlin's done great all these winning seasons, right? Winning seasons. But to use one of your favorite hockey teams, and we love the cross sports references because they just bail us out of a corner, pin
Yeah.
ourselves into a corner with an idea. And then um, the Toronto Maple Leafs, I find that they're always stuck in this almost not mediocrity, but they're never good enough to go do great because they're stuck trying to please the fans. They're always picking up a big contract signing. They never just tank, admit, hey, we suck. Let's just not get a big signing. Let's not give anybody any big money. Develop the players we have, and then draft and build a team from the ground up again. They haven't done that ever. When was the last time you remember them doing that?
Because they
Even
haven't
when they
needed
did
to.
get some picks. So the Steelers, I find they're in the same situation. They're always having a winning record, but sometimes it's better to just drop down and build from the ground up. Because as Shannon Sharp eloquently put it, it's not about losing. It's not about not losing. It's about winning. They're not winning. They don't do well in the playoffs. They don't go anywhere. They just have a winning record to end the season, stuck in that kind of mediocrity level.
Yes, and that is a bad spot to be. Your reference is on point, and it's even worse in basketball too. When if you're stuck in the mediocrity in basketball, you're never getting a top 5 pick. You're never making the playoffs. But here's the thing: Mike Tomlin's probably the best coach in the NFL, arguably, because he's always winning and because he's consistently bringing a team to the playoffs that has no business being in the playoffs. They have not had a quarterback since Ben Roethlisberger retired. Once he
Which
gets
was
a
that wasn't
quarterback,
that many years ago. That wasn't
I
that many years ago. Those were two
sure.
years.
So once he gets a quarterback, is he not a threat to win again?
I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I'm not saying he needs to, he needs a change. I think you get to a point where it's better to have a change because sometimes your wisdom, it's been heard so many times by the same voice, like people have their white, like I don't want to use this as an analogy, but I'm going to. You have your wife or your girlfriend, and it's the same voice all the time. You kind of drown it out. Not on purpose. It's just a subconscious thing because it's the same sound all the time. Even if they're telling you the right thing, you just kind of drown it out because you've heard it before. And sometimes getting a new coach does that. And not to say that Mike Tomlin's a bad coach, but he might need a fresh set of ears that are more eager to listen to him.
Well,
That's
like
just a thought.
so,
But
but here's the thing: they're not going to fire him. Pittsburgh doesn't
no,
fire their coaches.
no. And I'm
Um,
not saying he's doing badly that you should fire him. He doesn't deserve to be fired. I think just for his own sake, a change of scenery might, a change of scenery might help him.
I agree, but he came out yesterday and said that he's going to be back coaching the Steelers next year.
Yeah.
Um, and but I also think you just give him a quarterback, like even Flacco. Get Flacco in there. He can finish the whole circuit of the NFC South or AFC. What is it? AFC
AFC North.
North.
Yeah.
Um, and then see if you can win with him. Like he just needs a quarterback that can just do the basic stuff, which he hasn't had since Roethlisberger. And I think that this whole conversation is moot because they make the playoffs, they win a game, and then maybe they win another one, which they could do next year if they wanted to. The team, like their defense is so good, so good. They've got good guys out at the wideout spot. They've got 2 good running backs. They got a good offensive line. They just need a quarterback to put it all together and an offensive coordinator. Now, did you see him at the interview, the press conference after they lost to the Bills? Did
When
you
he
see that?
walked out on the question.
Yeah. What a stupid question, though. You don't ask that question after they lose a playoff game.
Yeah, but let's be honest. How many of the questions that the media asks are not stupid questions?
Most of them are dumb questions.
Did you see Todd? Oh, is it Todd Bowles?
Yeah, we're
The
gonna get it. Yeah, that's a perfect segue into this weekend's games. So the Buccaneers are going to Detroit. They are going to play the Detroit Lions um, at 12 p.m., 3 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. The Lions are favored by 6.5. Now, to go back to what you were talking about, Todd Bowles was asked by a reporter. So we've
They
seen
said that
now.
the weather affected a lot of the games from this past weekend, and what is his team doing to prepare for the weather? And he could have just ripped into
Oh my
her,
God, I thought he was
but
going
he
to.
was he was a little bit kind about it, and he just said, like made a little joke about it. It's like it's a 2-second walk from the bus into the stadium. It's an indoor stadium. It's got a dome. I think we'll be okay. We don't need to make any adjustments for the weather.
Yeah, which I thought was like when I heard that question asked, I was like, how do you have a job?
He
How
took
did
the high
that
road.
person? He definitely
He
took the
took
high
the
road.
high. He took the high road.
He definitely took the high road. If you got him on a bad day, he could have just absolutely ripped that reporter apart. But how does that reporter get a job? How do you not know this? Like, how do you not know that?
I,
It's
yeah,
very strange. But so yes, they're going to go play in Detroit, which is in a dome, controlled environment. Um, Lions are favored by 6.5. I mean, again, I don't know what's going to happen in this game. Tampa Bay
it's
seems
the
like,
same thing. If you know my logic of sometimes one game, the emotional high of winning is so much that it's hard to get up for the next game. It's
yeah,
it's tough
I
to
think,
psych yourself out. I think Tampa Bay's had more of a thrill of the victory than Detroit did because Detroit had to grind one out, which was close, and they expected it to be.
yeah,
That game, I think that game probably went the way they expected. They knew that they weren't going to just stomp them into the ground. They knew that it'd be a tough game, and both teams could probably make a couple mistakes and still come out and win. Like it wasn't like I specifically said neither team needed to play a perfect game to win. It was a winnable game. They
right.
just needed to play hard from start to finish, and Detroit could win. I think the Bucks were a little bit surprised at how handedly they took it to the Eagles.
Like very easily. Like the
Oh, they
Eagles were
crushed them.
never in
They
it.
crushed them. Yeah,
Even though it was
the
only
Eagles
sixteen
never had
seven,
anything going on.
sixteen
So I
seven
think
at
the
half, and it
emotional
was
high,
still,
like you saw the way they were celebrating Baker Mayfield celebrating first downs, and not to say you shouldn't celebrate, enjoy yourself. But
I
I think
definitely celebrate.
maybe, yeah, that maybe was a little bit more for them of like they had a kind of easier first round than expected, and it might be a little harder to get up for the next game.
I agree.
Whereas
I think it's also the
Detroit already
playoffs.
knows we fight tooth and nail, bite every ankle, as Dan Campbell says, for every win. Nothing's going to come easy ever.
Yes, and it is playoffs, so I don't think that any team's going to take a week off. But you're right. Like you don't want like Detroit wasn't expected to ever win a playoff game. The Bucks weren't expected to win a playoff game. Um, so maybe it's one of those things where it's just like, hey, we did what we were supposed to do this year. We can like just go in with a little bit less of a stressful mindset. But you want that stress. You want to go on to the next one. I think Dan Campbell's gonna be able to get the Lions up to that. But also Todd Bowles is no slouch either. Like he's been on this team when they went to the Super Bowl. Um, and Baker still has everything in the world to prove. So this I expect this game to also be, I think it's going to be lower scoring, probably in the 20s again, just like the Rams game was. It's not going to be in like 35, 38. I think it's going to be hard hitting, blue collar game. And it's just going to be one of those whoever survives this game wins this game, if that makes sense. It's just going to be hard hitting
Yeah.
bruises, just running the ball as much as possible, which I want the Lions to do. Run the ball all over the Buccaneers. That is our bread and butter. David Montgomery does it best. That's how we started the game against the Rams. Just run it down their throat. Throw Jahmyr Gibbs in. He can zip around. Um, I'm hoping for another great Sunday. No expectations, but very much hoping for another great Sunday. Um, who do you think wins this game? I'm not going to choose, but who do you think wins this game?
I think the Lions win only for the fact of I think everything I've said. The Lions know who they are. They know they can win, and I don't think Dan Campbell's letting them forget that.
Okay, well, let's get into you made your pick there. Let's get into the Saturday games. These games are both also I love what you did here. You did a lot of work on this Google
I
Doc here.
always do a lot of work on the notes. I always do a lot of work on the notes.
But even on this one, you usually don't put in the spreads, but you got those in there today.
For you, I did that for you.
I would, yeah,
I
I like
think
the
I
spreads.
have. Here's my conspiracy. I think the spreads is where the odds makers just fuck over people.
Yeah, that's why
I
they
don't have
make
enough
their money.
science, but I'm research. Yeah, that I think people are just drawn to the spreads.
Well,
The
that's
spreads
they're
kill you.
right
They
about
kill you.
them. They're right about them almost every single time. The spread
How do I bet with the
Vegas and
house?
spreads like they
How do I bet with the house? How do I bet with the house?
you don't. That's what the spread is. They know it's going to be 10 or 11, and then they'll adjust it based on what people are betting. They'll always
And so
win.
how
They're always going to win. That's
anyway.
what they do. Anyways, okay, so these are this Saturday's games. Um, We'll talk about the other Sunday game at the last one because that's probably the best game of the weekend.
So you said best game of the weekend. You want me to do the game of the week and the bad game of the week?
I don't think there is a bad game of the well. I don't think there is a bad
Well,
game of the week.
I got a note there. I got a note on there is no bad games. It's playoff time. There's only 4 games left. They're all good. But if there's going to be a bad game, I feel it's either the 49ers crush the Packers or the Ravens crush the Texans, just because who they are. However, I wouldn't be surprised if there's no blowouts. Every game is tight.
I agree. I think that when it comes down to this, like the Ravens are favored to win by 9. The 49ers are favored to win by 9.5. That's huge for playoff games. What I don't know why they are like why are they shading Houston? Like Houston just came out and played a dominant football game with almost
I
zero
think
mistakes.
it's just because Baltimore is the best team in the NFL.
Sure.
Houston is still young, and that, like we said, that high of winning that first round might be a little much for them. Baltimore got the rest, so they're fully healthy and ready to go.
I
What is it?
agree.
It's a rookie head coach in Houston
D'Amico Ryans, first time head coach, used to play for them.
against
He was a
a
defensive coordinator for
potential
the
Hall of Fame
49ers.
head coach.
Yeah, Super Bowl winning coach and John Harbaugh over in Baltimore. But listen, like
Yeah,
CJ Stroud is an X factor here. Like he could very much keep this offense, like this offense can very much keep this game close. Baltimore is not going to throw the ball deep. Like they're going to take time to get the ball downfield. They're going to use the run game and play action pass and run pass options to get down there. Whereas Houston, they could potentially big play score at any given moment in this game.
they could.
It's just up to their defense. If
But
their defense can slow down Baltimore, then this game could. I don't think that the Ravens win by more than 9. I think
no,
Houston at least covers, and this is a good game. All the
right.
games this past weekend were blowouts except for one. I see this going the opposite way, where it's every game is close except for maybe one blowout.
The only thing is, what happens if Lamar Jackson has a quintessential Lamar Jackson game and just destroys them?
Well, I also think that
He is
like
the current
MVP
leading MVP candidate.
right now is the best player in the league, Lamar
Yeah,
Jackson. That's the thing is they have the best player in the league, Lamar Jackson.
I'd
But
say him
also
and
CJ
McCaffrey. Yeah, him
Stroud,
and McCaffrey.
yeah, but CJ Stroud also is in the MVP conversation as well towards the middle to end of the season. So he's no
I don't
slouch.
disagree.
But it is Lamar Jackson's trophy.
Yeah.
So I
And
mean,
the 49ers are a little more. Ugh. Uh,
see the 49ers, I feel
I
like they could
think
choke this away. I feel like the 49ers
exactly.
could
I
very
think
much
like
choke this
the
away.
Packers are the easiest team right now to overlook.
Agreed.
They're definitely the easiest team to overlook. Now, the 49ers can obviously just destroy them. They're better at what every position,
Yes.
except maybe quarterback, I'd say.
I would say that's true.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people love Brock Purdy, but I would take
I
Jordan
like
Love
Brock
over Brock
Purdy,
Purdy.
but the way that Jordan Love's playing the last few games,
He's
he's
better.
playing,
He
yeah,
has more
he's
talent than
playing,
Brock Purdy.
yeah. As we've said, Brock Purdy doesn't need to do too much. Brock Purdy just needs to stick with the game plan. When Jordan Love needs to go above and beyond for his team to win.
Agreed.
It's a requirement for his team to win. He can't just play average, play simple football, and then win. He needs to play great, which he has.
Yep. Yep.
More is asked of him for his team to do well, and he's delivering. But Brock Purdy doesn't need. If Brock Purdy does too much right now, it can cost his team. So he just
So
needs to stick with the game plan, let his playmakers do the plays, and you
yeah,
know,
if
yeah.
Brock Purdy tries to do too much in this game, then this is when San Francisco could be flawed and give this game up to Green Bay. I also don't think that this is going to be a blowout either. Like
No.
if I would say if any game this week is going like if you had to predict one blowout game, it's probably this one because it's San Francisco at home, all the playmakers on that team, all the defensive guys on that, like their defense is stellar. Then
And
yet, yes, this could be
Green
that
Bay
game.
didn't get challenged enough last game.
Right. They
I think
ran
they
away
might
with
need
it
a
by
little,
half.
Jordan Love hasn't had a tough playoff game yet. Not to take anything away from his win last week. Played great, played as great as you could have asked him. They pulled him from the game, didn't they? Because they were doing too well.
Well, they were
Was he
up by
not
like 4
pulled?
touchdowns or
Yeah,
something toward in
they
the
were
fourth quarter.
pulled. He was pulled from the game to rest him because the team was doing too well. And then Dallas started to come back. So they put him back in the game and actually dropped his passer rating the slightest bit.
Now, if he plays that way again, this will at least be this game is going to come down to how Jordan Love plays. I think we can say that because we
100%.
know San Francisco is going to put up 30 to 40 points. Now, if Jordan Love can keep them within a touchdown, 10 points by half, then I think we've got ourselves a game. But this could be the opposite of the Dallas Green Bay game where San
Absolutely.
Francisco runs away with it early. But if Green Bay can stay close at half, then I think they got a chance to upset them.
Absolutely.
Because you can't let them get ahead early. You can't let San Francisco get ahead early. They'll destroy you
No.
the rest of the game. Their coaches are too good. Their players are too good.
Oh, they love playing with the lead.
Yeah. So
Moving on to the game of the week.
okay. So
As
wait, we
much
didn't
as
talk. Who do you think's gonna win? Who do you think's gonna win?
San Francisco. I think San Francisco wins.
And then in Baltimore, Houston, who do you think wins?
I think Baltimore wins.
You don't think there's gonna be okay? Go to the game of the week.
If
And I'll
if
ask this question
anything, if
after.
anything, the upset, I'd take Packers on the upset over Baltimore. Baltimore they proved they are the best team in the league.
It'd be crazy to get 2 upsets on Saturday.
It would, but fuck the odds makers. They got something. They got something cooking.
Yeah.
I know they got something cooking. But the game of the week. So I got a little bit about this. In the current NFL right now, this is the closest thing we have to Brady versus Manning, Mahomes Allen.
Yes.
This is the most like the biggest storyline leading up to this game. It's Mahomes' first real playoff game out of something like 16 games, which is unreal.
His first road game.
Yeah, his first road playoff game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
You said real.
does this game go to? Oh, sorry. My bad. Getting ahead of myself. There's a wild internet story going out there that a Bills fan
I
is
heard this.
sacrificing themselves into the pit of their new stadium every week, and
So
every
tell
week
the
they've
full
done
story.
it, they've won.
Tell the full
So
story.
the Bills are building a brand new stadium.
Yes.
And it's nowhere yet. The construction is nowhere. There's nothing constructed. It's just a pit in the ground, putting in the foundation. The foundation's not even put in yet, so it's just a big pit. This is something out of the first season of Parks and Recreation for anyone who ever watched that show.
Mhm.
And there's been a Bills fan tossing themselves in the pit, and the
Well,
news
somebody
report
fell
came
in.
out.
Somebody fell in accidentally. The when they the first the
Well,
day
where
they
I was
went on
going
that
with it, where I was going with it is apparently the hospital has reported somebody gone in there with an injury from the hospital from falling into this pit every week. That's how they have the evidence that someone's falling in. It could be multiple people. However, the local hospital has reported at least one injury from this pit that somebody had to come to the hospital every week. And coincidentally, the Bills have won every week. The hospital has reported an injury.
Okay, well, actually, from what I've heard, is when the beginning of their 5-game win streak, somebody accidentally fell in the pit and hurt themselves. Then they won that day. So a Bills fan has been sacrificing themselves before
Right.
every game and just jumping into the pit.
Okay.
So before each game, one Bills fan, a bunch of them gather around the pit, and one guy sacrifices himself and just stumbles into the pit. Is what
Right.
I've heard.
Okay. That could be more accurate.
But it's also equally as cool.
It's a hilarious story that these Bills Mafia guys are some of the most loved fans, but also some of the like dumbest
Oh, they're weird. They're
moron
so
fans. Like
stupid.
they're the two extremes of football fandom.
Like they're jumping in through tables. Like they're actively doing things to try to get themselves hurt.
Yeah, and then they go do charity work, build a hospital for sick kids after.
Also, the coolest fans. Every year, there's a story about how somebody in football either got hurt or helped them win a game, and they've donated that amount of jersey number. Like 3 million Bills fans will donate $9 to this charity and make a ton of money for somebody. Like, so they're reckless fans in terms of like they're not hurting anyone but themselves. Let's not be like they're not. It's not like they're
I'm all
Philly
for it.
fans.
I'm
They're
all for
just
it. But US medical system is private, feel free.
yeah. So, but they're also doing good. Like the Bills Mafia is very, very cool when you hear the stories around them.
Yeah.
And this just makes them cooler. A fan is sacrificing themselves to a pit before every game is one of the most superstitious things I've ever seen, and I love it. I'm a very superstitious
But
person.
is this not the best quarterback rivalry we have in the NFL right now?
1000%. And I believe that Mahomes has won every single one, right? Or maybe Buffalo
Has
won
he?
their first one recently. I don't think Buffalo's won in the playoffs against Kansas City though.
No. Mahomes only lost against, I think, two players in the playoffs, Brady and Burrow.
Right.
I don't
Yeah,
think he's lost to anybody else in the playoffs.
that's probably right. So this game is probably one of the most waiting like awaited games. What is this the phrase I'm looking for? Most anticipated games of the whole year. Everybody knew Buffalo
For
and Kansas
sure.
City were gonna at the beginning of the year be in the playoffs, hoping that they play each other, and then you'd have the Bengals obviously there too, in the conversation. But this and
The
we
Bills are
got
coming
this
in
game in the
hot too. The
playoffs. Like
Bills are one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now.
I if I was Kansas City, I would they're the underdogs. Like I know Bills are favored to win by 2.5, but I would put this game at 4.5, 5. Um,
Yeah.
like
I think Allen gets his revenge for
a, th-
the
I a
overtime.
1000% agree. A thousand
Now,
percent agree.
if it goes into overtime, Allen is 0-5 in overtime, lifetime.
Now, but they haven't played at home against the Kansas City Chiefs in playoffs. Like this
I'm
gonna
not
be
saying against the Chiefs, just lifetime. He is 0-5 in overtime. He's never won in overtime.
yeah. Well, let's just hope it doesn't go to overtime. I'm rooting for the Bills.
I'm rooting for the Bills too. We don't like the Chiefs. We're
We
not
do
Chiefs
not like the
fans.
Chiefs. I do not like the Chiefs. Travis Kelce took a turn this year. I don't like him that much anymore. Never really, I respect Mahomes. I love watching him play football. Never really liked the guy. Um,
I like Andy Reid the most out of all of them.
I do like Andy Reid a lot, actually. Andy Reid I
Yeah.
like. Um, but it's just like I want to see the Chiefs in that box with Taylor Swift and Brittany Mahomes just suffer in the cold in Buffalo, and all the fans in Buffalo just throwing snowballs at everybody else. That's what I
I've
want
told
to
you.
see in this game.
I've told you my like hidden closet, deepest, darkest Buffalo Bills fandom story, right?
No,
When I was a little kid, fresh immigrant from Iran, living in Canada, somehow I had a Buffalo Bills, what was it, like Super Bowl 29
you've
championship
told me
t-shirt.
this. Yes, you've told me
Yeah, the
this.
t-shirt they give for the, they make for the losing teams and they ship off to the third world countries.
Yeah.
I had one of those. I grew up thinking they won a Super Bowl.
Do you still have that shirt?
I wish I did. No, this was the 90s I had this. Like this was ages ago. I was a little kid.
I gotta keep that. It's gotta be in your parents' basement
I
somewhere.
didn't know. I didn't know it was such a big deal because I thought they won. I thought these were a dime a dozen. So I wouldn't mind, I wouldn't mind making that true that they did win a Super Bowl. But there's a few teams I got ahead of them in the wish list. So
Okay,
the
so this game probably gonna be cold weather, but Kansas City's played in cold weather. We didn't talk about. Do you see Mahomes' helmet break?
yeah,
That was cool.
that
I've
those
never
little
seen that before.
clips. No, it
That was
almost makes you question the helmet. Was he just used for too long and it was just time or
I think it was just frozen. I think it was just frozen.
right, right.
Um, I think Buffalo wins this game. Um, I don't want to say it's going to come down to a field goal because I feel like this is a game where there's going to be missed field goals early. And then you just don't trust your kicker anymore. Not their fault, just that I think the wins are going to be high. Um, I'm rooting for Buffalo. My brother-in-law's a Buffalo Bills fan. So to see Detroit potentially win and Buffalo win on the same day to move on into the conference championships would be a very cool thing for our family personally. But I just don't see Kansas. I don't think Kansas City has the team to beat Buffalo this year. I think Buffalo is just a
No, I
better
don't think
team.
so. I think Buffalo has every bit of motivation to take it to them.
And I think this is the first year you can say that Buffalo has a better team than Kansas City.
Yeah, I agree.
So, but we have like, so here's the thing is there's going to be out of these 4 games, there's going to be an upset. Not all favorites are
Is
going to
there
win.
though? This is the round where I feel like there's less upsets. In the wild card round, there's more upsets. In the divisional round, I think statistically, I'm going to throw out a number. It's like 38-11. The top seed team, the home team wins.
Well, there's 11 upsets there.
Yeah.
It's 1 in 5, basically.
Less.
1 in 5
Almost 1 in
games.
4.
1 in 4. So
Almost
one
1
of
in
these
4.
games is going to be an upset. If you had to pick,
Ah,
you have to pick an upset. Who are you picking?
I don't want to pick it
You have
because
to.
I don't want to say it because it's the team I
Oh,
want the least to win.
I don't know. I think I know who
I'd
you're
go
talking
for
about.
any of those upsets
I
except for the Lions.
I hope I hope there's an upset on Saturday so that there's less chance of an upset on Sunday, if that
You know
makes
what?
sense.
The upset would be the Bills lose. That would be the upset. I think Mahomes is always the X factor. He's the he's the golden boy of the NFL, rightfully so, and you can never count him out. Somehow he always finds a way.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree with that. I think I do, man. I really do think that one of these games on Saturday is an upset. And I don't want it. I would rather Green Bay beat San Francisco. That's what I want.
Yeah.
That's what I want the upset to be. I want Green Bay to beat San Francisco. That means that potentially, if the Lions win, they get another home game to go to the Super Bowl. Um, but that's a lot of stuff that needs to happen. So if I wanted an upset, I think it would be I 100% would want Green Bay over San Francisco. Man, something about this Houston team tells me they're going to make it close against Baltimore, though. I bet you that game comes down to a field goal, and Justin Tucker wins it.
Which, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think.
One piece of news which last week we missed just because we recorded a day before I think it came out is a coach we haven't talked about is Pete Carroll got let go.
Yeah, Pete Carroll got let go. Also, um, the New England Patriots have hired their head coach already.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this guy. You know anything about him?
Yeah,
He
he
was
used
already
to
within the
play.
organization.
Jared Mayo used to play for them. I think he's a Hall of Fame linebacker. Used to play for Bill Belichick. He became the defensive coordinator and defensive assistant a couple years ago. But he signed a contract, I think 2 years ago, that said he's the succession plan if Bill Belichick leaves. So they didn't have to interview anybody else. With the Rooney
Right.
rule in the NFL, you have to interview two minority candidates, but they didn't have to do that because of that line in his clause, which it's very weird to me that Las Vegas has to do that. They could, like, Antonio Pierce is a minority candidate that could get the head coaching job, but they technically still have to interview two minority head candidates. If you're going to hire a minority head candidate, doesn't that make it kind of a weird rule?
Well, I think you still got to give fair, a fair playing field for all candidates. So you still interview, like if you're interviewing one, you interview anybody that's qualified. But I don't know. None of it makes sense. You got to
I
take the
get
best
why
guy
they
for the
have the
job.
rules because
You
they
got
want
to take the
more.
best guy for the job.
Yeah, but I get the rules that you have to interview people of color because they don't have the same chances that other head coaches and other offense coordinators and stuff had in the past. And even still to the past, even last year, there was arguments about why guys got certain jobs. But if you're hiring a person of color, the Rooney Rule to interview people of color to make sure they have a fair shot, kind of a moot point because you're hiring a person of color. I don't know. I don't know anything, but it was just like, just hire Antonio Pierce. He's right there. He's on the team. He's a perfect candidate. But anyways, Jared Mayo, New England Patriots head coach. So that is one less opening. But yeah, Pete Carroll, that was a surprise. That was very
I
much a
get it.
surprise.
It just, you know what? They never recovered from that Super Bowl. Things have kind of gone downhill in the dressing room. And you know what? I
Are
don't
you gonna
think he's a
find a better
bad coach.
coach though?
He's one of three coaches who has a national title and Super Bowl.
Yeah. Now
So
they want Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. He didn't do too great this past weekend. So I don't know if that's an upgrade as head coach. It's just different.
no, no, but I think Pete Carroll can do well somewhere else.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. Chargers maybe stay in the division, or sorry, stay in the Western Conference, Western Hemisphere, Western whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about.
West Coast.
West Coast. There we go. All right. I got nothing left for this week. What about you?
No, I think that's our show.
All right. Are you back in Canada next week for this or no?
No. Okay, so the last thing I'll say, do you choose one of the two options? whatever the Lions' current odds are to make the Super Bowl naturally on their own, or a guaranteed trip to the Super Bowl, but you got to watch the Super Bowl with me. What do you pick?
The
The fact that you're taking time to think about it really says a lot about this
Well,
question.
I just don't want them. I feel like
You just don't want to watch it with me.
no. Here's the thing: is that if
you
they
think
make
that
it
they
on
can
their
get
own,
there on their own, and then you don't have to watch it with me. Yes, I
well,
get
no,
it.
it's because if I watch it with you, if I get a free pass to the Super Bowl, then I watch it with you. That's almost a guaranteed they don't win.
Why?
Whereas if they make it on their own accord, they have a better chance of winning because I didn't make a
No.
deal.
Their odds of winning don't change.
But it does because you don't understand the superstitiousness that happens here during a Lions game.
In my own created analogy, where I am the god of the analogy, I do understand the superstitions.
No, you don't. You don't. There's certain things that have to happen here in order for the Lions to win.
Yeah, and I looked after all of them anyway.
I plead the fifth.
Sign us off here. Sign us off.
All right, everybody. Enjoy the games this weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Running Down the Clock is brought to you by the Ordinary Podcast Network and is every Thursday running until the week after the Super Bowl. We hope you enjoyed enough to subscribe and tune in again next week.